Welcome to The Talk, the nightly show where we investigate the challenges that American democracy faces. Tonight, we'll be discussing lobbying, a lucrative field, which grants a more expedient route from the people to the government. Lobbying allows for an individual or a group to push their message through a former public servant or elected official, for a price. The primary issue with lobbying is that it grants an unfair advantage to those with greater income, giving them more power and violating the right of the individual to equal voice in the government. Here with us this evening, we have a lobbyist giving us their opinion, the input of your average Americans, as well as a specialist and my co-host for the evening, Melissa Rose Fisher, who will give us her advice on how to curb this threat.
We will also elaborate on the threat of lobbyists through a case study of a man called Jack Abramoff, whose political entanglements and corruptions elate him to near infamy.
Hello and welcome back as we continue our research into the colossal threat to American equality that is lobbying. Here with me now is registered lobbyist Michael Smith, who has agreed to contribute his first-hand insight. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Would you please explain for us all the exact job description of a lobbyist?
Certainly. Lobbyist can be defined as any person who is employed by and acts for an organized interest group or corporation in the hopes of influencing policy decisions by coordinating with members of Congress or bureaucratic executives.
Do you believe that the cost of lobbying inhibits the right of the average American to have his opinion expressed equally in the government? Does the existence of lobbying in the government grant an unfair advantage to persons or interest groups with money?
Now, that's an interesting question. You see, I do believe that lobbying does favor those with money, but not to the point where there's a disadvantage. People can always come together to hire lobbyists, making it affordable. Lobbying is an invaluable way for people and communities to come together and influence policy. Lobbyists advocate for a cause, not for themselves. And ultimately, it is the decision of the congressman or the bureaucrat to pass or veto a bill, not the choice of a lobbyist.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Smith.
It's been a pleasure.
What Mr. Smith neglected to divulge is that many lobbyists are unregistered, providing services for groups without the government being fully aware of the scope of their actions. Lobbyists have virtually no restrictions, and what restrictions are set in place are loosely enforced. Lobbying has destroyed the lives of many whom it has promised to aid, such as the multiple American Indian tribes that Jack Abramoff conned and stole from.
In the span of 10 years, Jack Abramoff became the most powerful lobbyist on Capitol Hill. Congressmen lined up to do his bidding, and heads of governments hung on his every word, but scandal brought him down, ultimately casting him into prison. Jack Abramoff was a whiz at influencing legislation, and one way he did that was to get his clients, like some Indian tribes, to make substantial campaign contributions to select members of Congress, essentially buying the members of Congress. He overbilled 4 of his India casino clients by $45 million, stealing from Native American tribes he was contracted to help. In the end, he was brought up on federal charges of tax evasion and conning Indian tribes.
So I ask you, now that we have identified this threat, what solutions can we provide? Lobbying is difficult to monitor, difficult to enforce. We can make attempts, but nothing we will do will be 100%. Bureaucrats who are tied to lobbies are less likely to push a bill that will threaten that relationship. To be able to monitor lobbyists, there must be colossal repercussions for both unregistered lobbyists and those bureaucrats who are consulting with them. We must also require strict licensing and proof of licensing before any kind of consultation occurs. The benefits that may be reaped from lobbying are sufficient enough on their own. Therefore, the minimizing or elimination of the revolving door, whereby lobbyists are able to move freely from the public sector to the private sector and back again, sounds reasonable. By denying lobbyists the ability to further incorporate themselves into the public government, democracy is preserved by the weakening of the Iron Triangle. Additional work outside of lobbying that is directly involved with bureaucratic activities may only be done if there is no gain for the lobbyist.
Say no. These are for hotels only.
Fairness and equality is greatly threatened by this unjust system of lobbyists. Their efforts inhibit fair and proper elections. allowing the wealthy to access a back door into the political system through the use of money. America as a nation must take a stand and ensure that lobbyists are closely monitored. Unregistered lobbyists must not be tolerated. Without the removal of lobbyists, the democracy of America is in danger. For the future of America, we must take a stand.